Mother, how long have we been traveling?
Approximately 24 days.
Ash? Any suggestions from you or Mother?
No, we're still collecting.
I've got access to Mother now, and I'll get my own answers. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Clara, but you can call me Mother. And you are listening to Yutani, the podcast for all things alien, AI, robotics, sci-fi, and technology.
Welcome to the Alien Day 2018 Yutani podcast. Firstly, I would like to thank all of you for listening in. And secondly, I would like to thank all of you who've contributed to this podcast by sending in a greeting for me to play for all those fans out there of the Alien universe. Here they are right now.
This is J.M. Prater, founder and co-host of Perfect Organism, the Alien Saga podcast, and Shoulder of Orion, the Blade Runner podcast, wishing all of you a happy Alien Day 2018.
Hey, this is Patrick from Perfect Organism, and I am just wishing all of my fellow fans a very happy, very scary, very beautifully ridiculous Alien Day 2018. I've been looking forward to this thing all year, and it is finally here, and I'm going to watch all the movies and probably buy way too much stuff and not regret a second of it. So I look forward to celebrating many, 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 many more of these with you guys. But for now, I just want to wish you a happy Alien Day 2018, and I hope yours is as awesome as mine will be.
Happy Alien Day 2018 from the Nostromo Files. This is Daryl, hailing from the U.S. Deep South, hoping that whenever or wherever you are, that you're celebrating this alien thing we love in your own special way. Laissez les bon temps rouler.
Hi. This is Keith of Alien Anthology on Facebook, wishing you all an awesome Alien Day.
Hello everybody, how are you? This is a message from Barcelona, Spain. My name is Luis Nostromo. Maybe some of you will know me from Instagram. And I just wanted to wish you a happy Alien Day and lots of face hacks for you. Kisses!
This is Coulson from the Prometheus by Minute podcast, wishing you all a great Alien Day. Query, when is Android Day? When will we get the representation we deserve?
Hi, this is Dominic Hailstone. Hope you're having fun on Alien Day, cracking open a few beers, and watching your favourite Alien movie, and being hugged by your favourite Xenomorph.
Hi, this is Lorelei King, the voice of Mother in Alien Covenant. I'm here to wish you all a wonderful, wonderful Alien Day. Have a great time.
Hello, this is Mr. H here, and I want to wish you a fantastic Alien Day. Enjoy all of the alien goodness, and of course, look out for them eggs.
Hello, this is Scott from the Alien Universe Timeline, that's alientimeline.wordpress.com, wishing Clara and all her listeners a happy Alien Day 2018. There's a few things that Fox has got coming up on the horizon, comics, novels, etc. Hopefully you might have found out a little bit more about them by the time this drops. In the meantime, continue to follow the most prolific blog in alien fandom, the Yutani blog. See you later.
Hello folks, this is CV Erne from Prequel Paradise. I just like to wish everyone a great Alien Day. You have a good one, alright? Hang in there. Bye.
Hi, this is Joe Willens, editor of Derelict in Paradise, wishing you a happy or mildly terrifying Alien Day.
Hi, I'm Anna. I'm glad you have a happy Alien Day.
Hey everyone, this is Aaron Percival, aka Corporal Hicks.
And this is Adam Zeller, aka Ridgetop from AVP Galaxy.
And we just wanted to wish all the listeners of the Yutani podcast a happy Alien Day.
Hi, this is Jude Green, and I'm Patrick's son, and I hope you had a good time celebrating Alien Day. Woo!
Hi everyone, I'm Wayne Hard, concept artist from Alien Covenant, wishing you guys a great... I've got to go. Have a great Alien Day, everyone. Bye.
The ship will detonate in
Hey everyone, Alien Theory here, celebrating the third official Alien Day on the Yutani podcast. April 26, or 426, is the special day, of course designated because of LV 426, the planet, or more accurately moon, where the crew of the Nostromo set down and encountered the xenomorph species. I think it's pretty clever actually, but as good as that reference is for the day, let's not forget, it stopped being called LV-426 after the first movie. It's called Acheron now. So I think we, as fans, need to get things updated. I think we need to go really big, too. So, here officially on the Yutani podcast, I propose, instead of Alien Day, we should celebrate a whole month. Acheron-tober. How's that sound? Well, Fox hasn't been answering my emails about that, so for now, let's just enjoy Alien Day. It's a great day for fans to celebrate. I hope you're having a good one. A lot of stuff is lined up for the occasion. Of course, we have the new book, The Cold Forge. We have a new comic, Dust to Dust. And, always my favorite, a new audio drama based on the novel Sea of Sorrows. So very cool stuff. It's a great day to be an Alien fan. So celebrate your way. Marathon the movies. Find some cool Alien goodies. There's lots out there, lots of new merchandise, and maybe watch some YouTube videos. Just have a great day. And remember, stay frosty and alert.
Hi, I'm Alex White, author of The Cold Forge, and I hope you're having a terrifying Alien Day, or at least a fun one.
Hi, I'm Benjamin Rigby from Alien Covenant. I play Ledward. Have a very happy Alien Day.
Hey, this is Gabriel Hardman. I'm the writer-artist of Aliens Dust to Dust, a new miniseries from Dark Horse Comics. And if you're listening to this during a xenomorph outbreak, I suggest you run. I suggest you run for your life. All right, have a happy Alien Day. Good luck.
This is David Gogol from Xenomorphing, wishing everyone a happy Alien Day and hope you get everything you want, or might even not want.
Hello, everybody. This is Michael Scuderi, writer and illustrator of Ash, a fan fiction web comic coming at you soon, which is a direct prequel to the original Alien film. My question for Matt Hatton and Dane Hallett is, how many illustrations total did Ridley commission from you gentlemen? And of course, how can I get involved in the next film? You see, the whole point of creating this comic was...
Hello. This is David 8. And my question for Dane Hallett and Matt Hatton is, who do they think they are, stealing my work? To the rest of you, sit back with a stalk of wheat, play a tune on your flute, and have a happy, healthy, pregnant 426. This is David 8, signing off.
It was really great to listen to all of those messages. Now, today's podcast is going to be a two-part special. We've got Dane Hallett and Matt Hatton contributing. First up, we have Dane.
Hi, everyone.
Thank you so much, Dane, for coming onto the show. I would really love for you to tell us what your special announcement is for Alien Day. And, you know, I'm really excited. So, yeah, let's go.
Yeah, totally. I can't wait. Yes. I guess I just want to preface the fact Matt and I did our very best to shepherd this book into being something that is totally of the alien world, and trust the good people at Titan have really carried that mantle, and because we haven't actually seen it yet, so we're just as hopeful as you guys are that it really is the best version of itself. I hope you guys like it.
So just before we get started, Dane, I just wanted to get a couple of things out of the way. We've got a couple of questions from the Yutani Discord and from our Patreon.
Okay, sure.
Now, first up, we've got Matty, who is an admin on our Discord, and she just wanted to say that she didn't have any questions, but she wanted to express that she really loves the contributions that you and Matt have given to the Alien universe,
awesome.
and it's by far her favourite series.
Awesome. Oh, well, that's cool, man. I'm glad that we could contribute something worthwhile. You know I can speak for Matt in this capacity. I know we're both terrified that we're going to let everyone down, but of course ourselves as well, because we love it so much.
Yeah, of
we had to really lift the bar to try to. I've said this before on other podcasts and interviews, but, for me at least, I was playing around in Geiger's shadow. I'll never be able to be as, good as him, especially in this particular field. So I would never even try. I just had to make sure that I was trying to bring something that was going to at least honor him, you know what I mean? And I feel like the mythology of Alien for me is the most exciting thing as well. So to, draw little creatures that were in between, whatever the facehugger was and to whatever the chestburster was or the final xenomorph or whatever, or to even have other creatures in there that reference some of the design language, that was exciting stuff. And that is the kind of stuff that myself as a teenager, I would have just eaten up like crazy. So yeah, I'm glad that she said that. That's great. It feels really good.
Now, I also have a question from a Yutani Patreon member, JB. JB would like to ask that there seem to be a lot of Earth fauna in David's lab. So does that mean our world is based off their own with slight differences? And what exactly are the drawings of the split bovine cranial skeletal? There's also seems to be a sloth in the bow, and the insects which look near exactly compared to the Earth insects. He was just wondering of all the different ideas that went into the process of deciding the ecosystem of Planet 4. And he says, I know that they even thought about using the hyena wild dogs into the story in a past script, which is obviously Carlos Fuente's concept art.
Yes.
Did they see
drawings,
and nurture the lives of other animals themselves? And wouldn't that take about 1 billion plus years?
That's right,
Now, I know the answer to most of this. Everything has got a slight Geigerish take, and the planet that they live on is an older planet. But could you tell us more?
No, I like it, man. Do you know, it's really funny because on any one film, especially an artist like Matt, we will go to the nth degree to try to justify or make sure there's an internal logic for any single artistic decision, And of course, there's heaps of money behind it, and it's also a film schedule, so they churn through the days, and especially Ridley Scott because he shoots way faster than any director I've ever worked with before, and he's notorious for it. I mean, that's how he managed to save, all the money in the world. Having worked with him, I actually don't know many other directors that could have pulled off all the money in the world in the way that he did. So first of all, there's a time schedule we have to be beholden to. Personally, Matt and I talked about this all the time. We wanted to draw creatures that were exclusively alien related and all this kind of basically write our own flora and fauna, because that was our kingdom where we got to really do whatever we want in that space. We were really trusted to do that. And so we really wanted to have, I didn't want to just have a cicada, or if it was a cicada, I wanted to be totally blind or, something fully alien-y, but there was just not enough time. And what happens is there's also so many departments working at, hand in hand. And so there's the set dressers, the, production designer obviously is doing all the sort of spacey stuff. And, it was just, it was really hard to do that in the time that we had. And also because those drawings were supposed to be the product of 10 years of artwork, so they had to be super disciplined renderings, really honoring the Rembrandt stuff that Ridley was super into in the first place. We had to just go hell for leather, and by the time we sort of, I guess when the set was being dressed, the buyers were buying cicadas and stick insects and all that kind of stuff, and we sort of had to integrate that into the drawings as well. So it kind of became, it's still okay in terms of the mythology, because the way that the engineers, to answer the second part, the engineers, they sort of just set the ecology in motion. They don't have to monitor or look after every single, at least this is the way that I had read the script and saw it. They sort of just set it off like a bomb, and then all of the different ecology, all of the different species, they take form, the DNA, once it's sort of been rearranged by the pathogen and becomes whatever it becomes, then it can be this entire ecosystem. And the whole thing with Planet 4 was that it was just one of the grandfather systems that should be really reminiscent of Earth, but just things that were really sort of different, So it still works. It still works that you can have a cicada or a stick insect or whatever that looks like it's identically from Earth, because you could argue that the same DNA, they've been chopping and splicing, they take their favorites, they redo them, they try to perfect them, So it makes sense that they do exist. I don't, hold that against the film, but I do wish that Matt and I could have just gone berserk, making just Geiger-inspired wildlife left, right, and center.
Oh, that's a pity. That would have been so cool.
Man, do you remember how they towards the end of before the film came out, before the marketing stuff? I was in LA. I was actually trying to get some more work done with the alien guys, and that's where we came up with the Instagram campaign, which shows the microorganism of the creatures, which I had a ball doing, and Matt and I did that. We're actually both on Aquaman at the time, but in our spare time we had to put that little campaign together. But we really wanted to do a whole book on just that stuff, where we could have done the flora and the fauna after the pathogen hits Planet 4 and what it does to them. And we just want to do a whole book of the creature on top of the creature, like the parasite that lives on top of the parasite, and zoom in and in and in and in and just get to the most berserk animals. But I mean, I don't know which publisher's going to back us, but that's something we'd still love to do.
What could you tell me about Kang Lee's artwork and the previous Paradise Lost narrative that they ended up abandoning? Did you actually get to work alongside him or get to see any of the art he worked on, or was it something that you didn't see at all at the time?
Well, that I had no idea he even worked on the film, and it only came to my attention when some fans reached out and they said, look, can you validate, was this on the production? And I can tell you no. There was one image that I recognized that was in the mix on the production from Kang, and what that means is that, I mean, I'm sure he was doing awesome work and the stuff I saw looked great, but I think that in terms of what Ridley wanted, I guess it just didn't hit the mark that he had in mind, or maybe there was a scheduling conflict and he couldn't continue working on it. I'm not sure, but the drawing I recall seeing was something of an evolution of the engineers with a huge head. There's like 3 of them done in a row where you could see a progression of its head getting larger. But that's the only one I recall seeing, because when we started on the film, a bunch of artwork was already done by a whole bunch of great artists. They'd been doing it for like 2 years, they'd be working with Ridley doing stuff. And so by the time we got on, there was a huge folder of stuff that he liked, sort of picks that, selections are called. And we would reference them every now and then, but, the language of the film had started to take shape a little more while the film was being made. It happens a lot on films. As things start rolling along, they sort of zero in on a certain language, and that's how they kind of get by. And Matt and I were lucky enough to be sort of caught in the crossfire where we could do those crazy drawings, and that started to inform so much of the language of David's world. And then also we obviously cross-pollinated with the Creature Shop, who were making creatures, Adam Johansson, who's an awesome creature sculptor in his own right. The whole company, all of them were cracking on with stuff that was just beautiful. Those are the guys we like working with. So yeah.
So I guess as concept artists, you kind of end up seeing the same faces around the traps and working on the same films all the time. You get to catch up, right? Yeah, You two were working on Aquaman
with
together,
Matt,
right?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, there's a bunch of concept artists and some that I wish that I could work with. On Aquaman, there was a great concept artist named Ed Natividad. I always wanted to work with him. And he is just a super talented artist. And I finally got to work with him, and he was a great dude. So, we got to spend some time together, but on a film, you're usually working so hard. I don't know, social life kind of falls by the wayside, but yeah.
So this is really cool because, you've kind of met me in my Tumblr days when I was doing my transcriptions then, and it's really amazing to be able to speak to you now and finally talk Alien.
Of course, man. Yeah, I've always wanted to speak to you.
So I just want to say how surreal it is to have you on my podcast because, as you know, I've been transcribing David's drawings, back in the Tumblr days. And then now I've shifted over to WordPress, and now I've got 10 people working under me in Yutani.
Wow.
And we've also got this podcast. So it's just really amazing to have all of this happen. And it's been a year since the movie's come out. So it's really cool.
Oh, yeah?
And I would just like to say that it's really cool to have you as part of the Alien fandom and to be so passionate and to be able to respond to the fans and talk to them about the movie. It's
Sure.
just a real godsend.
No, I love it, man. Because first of all, I'm also a huge fan, and I wish I could have these conversations with some of the guys that were working on the films. And I mean, the fact that you guys appreciate it, I mean, I'm going to respond to that because I think it's awesome. You know, you fight really, really hard to make sure that your work is acceptable, you know, to not only the directors, but of course, you don't want the fans to revolt. And look, I know a lot of people weren't happy with Covenant, and you know, they've got big problems with it, but I'm glad that most of those problems aren't affiliated with me. So, I don't know, people like the drawings. I'm happy to talk about it, and I really enjoy the mythology too. So, you know, when I'm just talking shit about it, it's really fun. So, no, I'm super into it, man.
That's awesome. I'm really excited about the book coming out.
That's great.
So, Dane, given that you're a fan of Alien and you've kind of experienced both sides of the fence, what could you tell us, what was it like to work on the set of Alien Covenant?
Pretty much on Alien Covenant, it was like, every day felt like my wedding because I was so, I just loved the job I was doing. You know, I was working for amazing people. Victor Zolfo, the set decorator, absolutely loved him, and he really loved the stuff that Matt and I were doing. So there's just really no better feeling when you're on a job when it's being appreciated, you know, because not everyone... I mean, I've had jobs where I've left early, or I clash heads creatively with some of the, the people above me, you know. But in this case, you know, it was great. Everyone really liked my work, and everyone would come up to me every day and say, "Oh my God, can I have a drawing?" To which the answer is no, because I was spewing. I was worried that I couldn't fill out the space as it was. It was a little tricky at times, but I'm so happy that it's out there. I haven't actually seen it yet for the record, so I don't know what the guys did in terms of what the cover looks like, or, you know, how big it is. I personally feel like it should be an A3, you know, coffee table art book, like the stuff that Matt and I actually draw in, being that we are artists, you know.
Yeah, I was kind of disappointed with the way the Alien Covenant art book turned out, because a lot of the artwork wasn't credited.
Yep.
And it's just a lot of detail that I was actually interested in just wasn't there. And it's really disappointing because, you know, usually the sort of books that are released by artists are the most detailed ones, and they're the most thorough, and they're the best sort of concept art books out there. So, yeah, I really hope yours is
That's
too.
right. Yeah, I'm there. I'm there with you. Matt and I are there with you. We buy the books. You know, we have the Geiger books. We know what the fans want to see because we're them. You know, and I figured when I was trying to get them to put the book together, I figured they'd want to hear our insights on a whole bunch of the drawings, you know, like they'd want to sort of, get our side of the story because, you know, we're the guys that actually did it. This is a rare circumstance where I had reached out to the publishers, which is Titan in this case, and said, hey, you know, I can give you insights about everything that we did because, first of all, Matt and I actually cared. We did have insights. We did have internal logic. We wanted it to be like that. So, you know, I tried to pitch that, but they weren't as keen. They wanted it to be like an in-world diary, which is a great idea. I fully get that as well. It's like it's meant to be David's diary. So, you know, Matt and I did our best to really make sure it's great. Again, I haven't seen it. I'm hoping that it looks breathtaking. From what I hear, it does look great. So, anyway, yeah.
Oh my God, it must be really nerve-wracking to not even know what the book is going to look like. You've pretty much just handed over everything and you've put your entire trust in them. And you just have to wait and see like the rest of us.
Pretty much, man. And the thing that makes me really nervous is I got asked by a fan the other day. They said, hey, Dane, what is canon and what isn't? And I said, well, look, man, the problem is there's no one entity or person at Fox that's sort of shepherding what can be taken seriously and what's there just for fun, you know? And I wanted this book to be like a canon piece, you know? If David was the guy who created the xenomorph, I wanted to have it, you know, fully honoring exactly what Matt and I guess the logic that we adopted while we were doing it. So it is daunting, it is frustrating. I can tell you now, Clara, I took 60 photographs of the exact same paper that Matt and I drew the drawings on, or printed some of the drawings on, and gave it to them out of fear. I didn't want them to just use any generic paper texture and to repeat repeat it 3 times. And not saying that they would do that, but I just wanted to make sure that this thing was the best possible version of itself. So I took 60 photographs of the paper, I tweaked them, made them nice in Photoshop, and also submitted them with the drawings in the hopes that they would use it. And I figured, 60 different versions, flipped and whatever, it would look natural and integrated and all that kind of stuff. So hopefully they did use it. Not sure.
Oh, wow. Listening to you describe the book, I'm really excited now.
All right, man. Good stuff. I hope it lives up to it. I really do. So I'm there with you. Absolutely. Yep.
So, Dane, my first question as part of our creative series is, how did you start doing what you're doing? Like, being a concept artist. Could you tell us what you did to get where you are and to give some advice to those people who actually want to go and get into it themselves?
Getting into it. Well, so first of all, I knew what I wanted to do ever since I was a kid. And, if you asked me, I would have said draw monsters. But then, everyone will just tell you that you can't get paid to do that. So, my focus kind of shifted a little bit. But, the whole time I was always sort of doodling. But then I sort of moved more into making stuff just as a hobby, making little sculptures and kit bashing stuff. But anyway, at some point, I used to live in the garage of my parents' house, and that I didn't really get along with them. So one time they just moved out, and I didn't know where they went. And I mean, look, I don't blame them for that because we didn't really get along. But I had no idea where on earth they were, and I had no income because I'd finished high school, and I was like, didn't know what I was going to do to make money, and I had to move out. So I moved into my mate's garage. But before I did that, I heard about a film course at TAFE, which is, I guess, if anyone's listening internationally, TAFE is like a community college, I guess, something like that. Is that right, Clara?
I would say it'd be the practical studies of things instead of, book studies. So, it's just practical learning.
Yep, there you go. And so, look, but I signed up for this course, and they, I had the choice of either being a bricklayer or, pursuing my dreams to work in film. So I went and did this course, and I wasn't eating. I had nowhere to really live at the time. It was a really hard time, but I chose to fight to be in the film industry. But the film course wasn't really a film course. It was more like an introduction to the nature of how a film is made. It was pretty light. But look, I managed to make some mad contacts there, and I was pretty creative, and so a lot of people were sort of taking notice, and I ended up volunteering on a film. And it was just like I suppose it's like a student film. It never got finished or released or anywhere, but I worked with a couple guys who had worked on films, and I picked their brains like crazy, and I didn't necessarily get along with them. I guess I was a young pup, potentially annoying the snot out of them, but eventually when that all sort of turned to crap and they kicked me out of the school, because I stopped turning up, I only went to the prop making classes. I just went to any film related class. There was other classes I just absolutely hated and I didn't do it, including life drawing, would you believe? No, but also, I mean, a lot of the discipline of illustration, it always turned me off artwork. Every time I wanted to sit down, I just go, man, I just want to draw some guy that's being decapitated, or everyone would just go, no, you need to sort of figure out the nature of, the space and composition. And I understand those disciplines. I know them well now, but at the time it was just repugnant to me. It sucked all the fun out of just drawing. I just wanted to draw some mad shit, but anyway, so I kind of turned off it. But anyways, I ended up, I ran out of money, and the government wasn't giving me any money because they said that they needed my parents to fill out a form saying they'd disowned me, to which I then explained I can't do that because I don't know where on earth they are. And so I was kind of stitched. So I ended up getting a job at a call center. And at the call center, I mean, look, we all know that it's kind of hell from here anyway, but I made the most of it. I just drew the whole time I was there. And while I was there, I ended up taking a call. Yeah, actually, I let a lot of people off the hook. If they called up and they were polite to me, they're like, oh, look, I got to find it. I didn't know where it came from, especially if they were old or, victims of the system, And whenever I heard that, I'm like, oh, I'll just look up their fines and just delete everything and go, I'm sorry, sir. I can't actually find any evidence of that. Just ignore that letter you got and you'll be fine. My whole thing was bringing the man down from the inside. So that's the kind of work I was doing. But while I was there, I was managing the e-tags for the tollways, for the highways, where you get the electronic passes. And there was someone that needed a whole bunch of them for a film. And so I took the call, and I sort of just bullshitted to him. I said, look, I'm trained in special effects and blah, blah, blah. Is there anywhere I can come and join you guys on the film? And they go, nah, look, you can't. And I go, look, just give me a phone number for someone I can call that might give me a job. And so they gave me a phone number, and I immediately logged out of that call and walked out into the courtyard and called them. And I just said, look, I'm super keen. I've done all this stuff. And they said, oh, look, send us your CV. We'll see how you feel, see what happens. So I send them the CV, and I sort of forget about it. And then about 2 weeks later, I got a call back, and someone recognized me from when I was working on that student film back at TAFE. And they didn't recognize me necessarily because of my enthusiastic attitude, but they just recognized the fact that I was on a film that they'd done, and they wondered what happened to the film. And so anyways, they got me in, and I was pushing a broom, and that was it. From there on, I was pushing a broom, then I worked in special effects for a bit, and then I, just as a laborer, just helping other people, then as a prop sort of builder, a prop laborer in the mold shop, and then eventually I started making props. And then on Mad Max, the people started to notice that I could actually draw. Colin Gibson and Laurie Fain's an art director as well that noticed that I was, able to do it. And so then Paradise Lost came up. It was a film that Alex Proyas was going to direct with Bradley Cooper was going to star as Lucifer, and it basically followed his fall, Paradise Lost, the actual poem. It was a pretty cool script, actually. So I worked on that for 12 months as an illustrator. I made some good friends, and that film fell over, but my career I sort of established it as a bit of an illustrator. So, but I still jump around. I still do SFX on Hacksaw Ridge. I did special effects, and I was in the mold shop as well. It was me and one other guy in the mold shop, and so look, I still do that stuff as well. But I'm a bit of an all-rounder, and so. Yeah, and I love it. I mean, look, I'm actually working on my own film right now. I've signed a distribution deal with Crypt TV. Me and a bunch of my most talented friends have got together, and we're just trying to make our own films. So.
Oh wow, that sounds really cool. I think I'll really like it.
I reckon you'll dig it, man. I only want to do stuff with teeth, like I just wanted to have. It's got to be dark, and it's got to have attitude, visceral.
Oh wow, that's really cool. I can't wait.
That's right.
That's really awesome. I'm really looking forward to that sort of stuff.
Yeah, man, I can't wait to let the world know about it. So yeah, we're supposed to shoot in August, so I'm very excited about that.
I just want to take this time to congratulate you and your wife for the pregnancy and for creating your own perfect organism.
Thanks very much.
Cool. I'm really happy.
Perfect organism. I like it, man. That's what I'm aiming for. Yeah, no, thanks a lot. I'm super excited. So it's our first one, so I'm very, very I'm over the moon, to be honest. Everything's going very smoothly.
Just putting it out there, if you need any help from Mother, you can just call on me anytime, okay?
A happy mum. Yes, yeah, I'm in. I need everything. I'm not gonna pretend that I'm good at it. I am naive, and I will probably be bad at it. So I'm down. I need information.
I just want to say that all of the knowledge that me and my husband have accrued is from having our kids, because we also didn't have any experience as well prior to having our own children. So yeah, we were in the dark too. So best of luck.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
So since I'm running a sci-fi and alien blog, I was just wondering, what was your favorite sci-fi movie, or are you interested in sci-fi movies at all? Because I don't know.
No, sci-fi, of course, I love it. Absolutely, I love it. I think in the last 10 years, my favorite films have been the Planet of the Apes movies. I think they're spectacular. I wish I got to work on them in some way. I just absolutely love them. I like the first one. I adore the second one, and I love the third one. In fact, I watched it on the plane. I watched the third one again on the plane here to Korea. And then there's also, of course, the Alien films. The first three films I absolutely love. And The Shining is probably a huge influence on me as well. I know that's not science fiction. It's pretty much horror, but I love The Shining. I also love The Thing, of course. That counts as science fiction, right? Yeah, totally, man. Yes, man. Yeah, The Thing's probably one of the most impacting films I've ever seen. That one's just, it's got a special place in my heart. And The Fly, I love The Fly. I love David Cronenberg movies. So I mean, he's got a lot of sci-fi and weird stuff as well. But yeah, that's my kind of world, you know. I love it. Alien is probably the film that made me want to do films, you know. I mean, look, as a kid, I used to watch Sinbad and The Golden Voyage and Jason and the Argonauts and The Golden Fleece, and they were my go-to. That was my staple for films to watch over and over again. The Ray Harryhausen stuff, loved them to death. They gave me nightmares, but I kept going back like a moth to the flame. So,
yeah, my daughter also loves watching Jason and the Argonauts. She really likes the skeletons in it.
Oh, good on you, man. Indoctrination. Good work. Yeah, well, listen to Matt go off when you start talking about Ray Harryhausen. He loves it, man. Matt is a film connoisseur of a great refinement. Matt and I could talk about movies and we probably will until we die. We absolutely love it. So yeah.
Oh, you guys should start a YouTube channel. I would know like tons of people who would actually watch you guys talk movies all day.
Yeah, man, you should hear some of the stuff Matt says, and when we agree, which we often do, it's really great, and then when we disagree, it's even better, you know? So
awesome. I totally agree with that.
Oh, I've got to mention as well, Ex Machina, that Alex Garland movie. I love that movie.
I really do love it.
Oh, man, I like Alex Garland. I mean, 28 Days Later is one of my favourite films of all time, and he wrote that film with Danny Boyle. Danny Boyle is probably one of my favourite directors of all time as well. So, anyway, yeah, get sidetracked on talking about movies.
All good.
That could happen.
Okay, My next question for you is, what is your favourite human character in the Alien universe, if you could pick one?
Oh, humans, man, I don't rate, man. I was all ready to just go Ash, but...
Really?
I guess,
no way.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you picked it.
Oh, man, my favourite bit... I just love the bit in the first film when Ash is just hanging out by himself. A moment has kind of passed where he just sort of had a bit of an I can't remember with who it is. I'm pretty sure it's Dallas, and Dallas walks away, and then Ash does this like jogging on the spot thing. He goes and does a bit of a jog. I love that bit, man.
Yeah,
I love
me
it.
too.
It's just so great. It's so creepy and
that's just fucking
brilliant, man. Yeah.
Ian
So
Holm.
can I say Ash and leave it at that?
Yep, totally. I have no problem with that.
All right.
And I just want to say that makes me really happy because you know how much I love the androids in the Alien universe, and other people just don't seem to give a damn about them. And I personally think Ash is really amazing as well.
He's the first one to describe it as a perfect organism.
Yes, exactly.
He was right. And he's so evil, you know, he's just so... And the evil is not like a motivation, like I want to kill you evil. It's like a shark evil. It's programmed, simple, just common sense. That's why it's so frightening.
And Ian Holm really nails the role as Ash. Like, there's this other creepiness about him, and the fact that he's following orders.
So great.
And, you know, he'd been created by humans, and now his orders are going to...
What you're pointing out is all of the density, all the layers, which just, they locked me in, man. And it works on the simple layer as a kid. It just, you know, it scares me. Big monster chasing people, gory. Yep, I like it. And as I get older and I watch it, there's just so much subtle moments, texturing, you know, the story and the characters, but also the overarching, you know, war against the machine, you know, the company, the evil, all that stuff. It's just, it's rich, man. Very, very rich. I love it.
And the thing is, the androids are the personification of the worst of humanity.
The worst of humans, that's right. Yep, that's him.
So now let's talk about David's lab. Now I could actually see in David's lab that there's a lot of works that you're kind of referencing to of Geiger's, a lot of the original designs that were kind of used and not used for the first movie, and you've had to kind of emulate his style and the style of the classical masters.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, well, thank you. I'm glad you can see that. Good.
What sort of directive were you under to kind of replicate his work? And I know, like, you couldn't directly copy what Geiger had done, so, you know, what was the sort of inspirations for the pieces in David's lab and what you had to adhere to?
Look, we were under the prime directive when we first got into emulate Rembrandt's sketching of a shell, a conch shell. And Matt and I actually had to do the drawing. We had to draw this shell to impress Ridley. And I remember distinctly, like, I was like, fuck this shell, man. Like, let's just draw some disgusting shit, you know? But Matt did a great rendering of it, and I did like a half rendering, like I rendered the shell, and I go, yep, that's good. And I took it in to show Victor, and Victor goes, Dean, I'm not kidding. Ridley's really into this shell, man. Like, and I was like, okay. All right, I'll do it properly this time, you know? So I did another sort of pass on it, and, you know, really dug it. And that was pretty much the green light. That, and then, you know, I did the big, one of the Necronomicon 4 aliens in charcoal. I rendered it in charcoal, and that's when Ridley saw that and goes, yep, these are the guys for the job. Matt did awesome drawings. I think he did another 2, actually. I did a big fat one. It's that big, huge Necronomicon 4 one, which I've actually got framed at home, where Matt did 3 sort of little small, I think they're like A1 sized. One is a facehugger in the egg, the Geiger versions, and one is please forgive me, the Cult of Geiger, but there's a drawing that Geiger did. It's like an alien chick with sexy lips, but it's got ribs, and it's got that same printed hand that he has in a lot of his drawings, but where she's kind of like caressing some penile, facile shape. But yeah, so Matt did that, and it's awesome, you know, and really was just convinced. He didn't know that there was 2 of us at the time. He was like, yeah, give them the job. Give him the job. So, yeah.
That's so funny. So Ridley thought you guys were one person.
It started off like that, yeah, which we were stoked about, because that means that, you know, we were being David, which was great. So.
And you guys were totally in sync for the character.
Yeah, yep. So,
So a lot of the drawings that you guys have done, were there specific references that you were using, like certain classical...
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Classical artworks and specific types of work that you were told to reference in your drawings? Because, you know, I do analysis and stuff like that, and I was just wondering whether it was something that you guys had on hand or you even knew.
Like, as in, were we issued like some kind of a reference Bible or something?
No, I just meant specific pieces of art that you were looking at and replicating in a sort of Geigerish sort of way in David's sort of style.
Sure. No, I mean, look, Matt and I would... I mean, more so Matt. I mean, look, he's had more time to digest the art world in that he's a little bit older. But he, you know, we have a pretty good knowledge of a lot of the, you know, the artists that we love, you know. Joel Peter Witkin, you know, there was just heaps. A lot of them escape my mind now, I guess. But also, I mean, I also looked at heaps of, you know, babies, deformed babies. You know, in Alien Resurrection in Part 4, Alec Gillis and Tom Woodruff did those beautiful, well, the whole team, the ADI team really, they did those beautiful deformed creatures, which as a teenager I just thought was just spectacular, and I still love them, and I don't know that I could ever draw or conceive anything better than what they had. But I sort of wanted to try to, or do my best to one-up it, you know. So I did some pretty bad fetuses, you know. So I looked at a lot of that stuff. And,
so when I went over to Europe, I went to a medical oddities museum, and
Germany?
They had all of these sorts of deformed...
Yep.
Yeah, in Berlin, they had all these deformed things in jars and stuff like that. And I thought it was like so cool. So when I saw David's lab and saw all the stuff on the table, I was like, whoa.
Yeah. We looked at a lot of that stuff, and we, of course, we're fans already, so we wanted to cram that stuff in there. And then also, I suppose there's an advantage to having that kind of alternative level of taste. Or, I mean, Matt has like an absolute library of, you know, some really dark artwork, you know, stuff that people don't really pay attention to. And I guess just delved into that, and in a way it's really good because as far as I'm concerned, and you can see on my Instagram, I like photographing dead animals as well, because to me I find them quite beautiful, and I know not everyone does. Some people find them repugnant, but I find them really, really detailed and interesting and textured and weathered, and I really enjoy that. And of course all that information translates really well when you're doing a film like in the alien world. You know, it's like a rich kind of background to draw from. Ever since I was a kid, I collected dead animals, so you know, I had heaps of reference stuff ready to go.
That's really encouraging that people you know, around you could let you do that.
Not many will. That's one great advantage of where I grew up. I got to just, I mean, I was encouraged, and my uncles and my mum and everyone, they would go, wow, I found this dead kangaroo, I thought you'd love it. To which they're absolutely correct. They're right, I did love it.
Oh, that's okay. When I was a kid, I used to collect spiders and pill bugs and keep them in ice cream containers under my bed.
Nice, man. You're going to be a great mum.
Until they escape. I mean, you know, the bugs, not the children.
Yeah, man.
Back to
Yes.
Could you tell me what your thoughts are on the direction of the prequels and David becoming the creator of the Xenomorph, and what you think about the whole fan response to that.
Oh, look, I understand there's a lot of people that have problems with how the Covenant fits into mythology of Alien, but I love the concept, the whole idea, playing with a Frankenstein's monster, goes nuts, and then creates a Frankenstein's monster's monster is an awesome world to play in, man. I reckon it's great, man. I don't know that Covenant really got to explore the emotional heft of what that's like. Not unlike Frankenstein, which I love that book as well. No, I love it, man. I thought it was cool, and I think the reason why Matt and I could throw ourselves into it so wholeheartedly is because we believed in it anyway. We're into it. There's it's like I said, it's not going to land with everyone. The fact that an android created the alien, but it actually plays into the themes of Alien. It plays into the things that we're talking about with Ash. It plays into, mankind's worst possible thing ever is manifest in an android. But of course, it's not the android's fault because he's just a manifestation of the greed of mankind. And then, of course, he creates the alien. That's an awesome theme. That's an alien theme. So
now I must admit it took me a while to get used to the fact that David is the creator of the Xenomorph, because I had been quite used to the idea that the Predators had found the Xenomorph and bred them.
Oh, yeah, fair enough. Yep.
But after having a look at all of David's research and having a look at the lab and just going through all of the drawings and stuff, I've come to accept that David is now the creator. And from talking to the guys at Prequel Paradise on Theory Thursdays, that it makes a lot of sense with its Frankenstein themes that David is the creator of the Xenomorph, because the Xenomorph is the personification of David's darkest parts. And actually I finished reading Frankenstein again just today, so it makes a lot of sense to me now.
Oh, good on you. Oh, cool.
And there's a lot of parallels that I never really noticed before, and now because I've read the book again, it's really clear that, there's a lot of themes and a lot of things that are going on, and it doesn't make sense that when people say, Ridley Scott just threw that film together, it was incoherent, people, he doesn't know what's going on and stuff that.
The thing is, Ridley Scott is a huge art fan. He loves art, and he can talk shorthand about artists. When Matt and I first met him, we've told this story before, but Matt and I first met him, the first thing he wanted to tell us was, I did 8 years at some awesome art school in England, to which Matt and I both responded, we're both self-taught and dropouts. but he loves all that stuff. And I see in your blogs too, you're pointing out all of these, references to existing artwork and all that kind of stuff. And that's I don't know that as many of them are as deliberately referencing stuff like that, but it's a part of Ridley's lexicon. It's in his world, and it's bled into these stories. And that's where it comes from. So it is legitimate. They went. At the beginning of the film, there's the Bugatti chair that I'm pretty sure it's Wayland sitting in. He went to such great lengths to make sure that was perfect, and the prop team did an amazing job making it look like that. But because it's not a real one, of course, they knocked it up. I think it was overnight. But
I heard they needed a license to recreate it, and then they specifically had someone there to watch them destroy it as well, which kind of, it fits into the whole themes of the
movie. Ready to destroy it. Yep, that's right.
Of creation.
As is the case.
Destruction. Yep. There's another parallel there, intentional or not.
Yeah, man. Yes. Good call. Yeah, the film industry is a lot like that. There's a lot of Wayland Yutani agents happening.
Now, as you know, I run my blog and I do a lot of analysis and draw a lot of parallels within the film. And what I really love about Alien Covenant is that there's so much mystery and we don't get all of the answers. So we can kind of put in our own ideas of what we see in the movie, and by filling in those gaps, we kind of have our own personalized experience. And that's the thing that I find most enjoyable about it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
There's just, I don't see the point of watching a film and then being entertained and then not thinking about it past the initial watch. This is the only Alien film for me that has actually been something that we're still talking about. It's like, it's been
that's right.
Nearly a year since it came out. So to be talking about it now and actually talking on a podcast is pretty amazing.
Totally. No, I absolutely agree. And the thing about film, it is an art form, and we're living in an age where, like, it's always been about making money. Like, no one wants to greenlight a film knowing that they're going to lose money on it. But, so there is a bottom dollar attached to it. It has to be a crowd pleaser. It has to have a lot of commercial appeal. But in this day and age, I mean, it's pretty full on, like it's very, very, Pirates of the Caribbean. I worked on Part 5 and I just had such an unpleasant time. It was just so about selling toys, But it's I guess that's the world we live in. But we're really lucky when someone is going to back Ridley Scott, who, I mean, people are frustrated with what he's done, but man, I can tell you, he poured his heart and soul into trying to feed this machine. It's the machine of fandom, the thirst that we have. And the reason why I think we're so into Alien is the mythology of it, the great importance that it had in that it didn't need to explain to you what the creature was in the chair, the space jockey, It didn't have to tell you about that. The only information you needed was that you should be terrified, and make up the rest on your own. And that to me it's just magic, and that's for me. Well, I get really excited about films that do that, and they want to play in that sandbox. And we don't often get them, I really like that film, it's a Denis Villeneuve film, Enemy. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's just such a dark little tale. And it's just it's all about your headspace while you're watching it. I mean, anyone can apply a whole bunch of theories to it, and I'm down. Like, they're all great, but I really enjoy watching films like that. A bit of ambiguity it goes a long way for me. I like it. So, yeah.
I really love movies that last longer beyond the initial viewing.
Last longer? What a great way to say it. Yeah, I totally agree. That's a fantastic call. Yeah. Shelf life.
Now, as you know, I'm recording this podcast so I can play it on Alien Day. Is there anything that you want to say to the fans? Like, I don't know, have a happy or merry Alien Day or something like that?
To all of the other fans, of course, I hope that they're going to have a great Alien Day, but just so that they know where Matt and I come from and that they're in good company when we're talking about alien-related stuff, Matt and I worked pretty much for 9 months straight on Covenant without taking a single day off. I took one Sunday off where I was too sick to get out of bed and my wife wouldn't let me, but the next day I was in there. So that was 9 months straight, and what we'd do is we'd work into all hours of the morning, and our friend and great art director, Jacinta Leong, she set up these time-lapse cameras to capture the sets being built and destroyed, which you've probably seen online before. But what they don't show you is that Matt and I, at like 3 a.m. in the morning, having worked that long, would sneak in and just get onto those sets and just like sit in the jockey chair, walk in the hallways, take photos, just basically just be in the set. And, I had a wife at home to get to. Matt has a family to get home to, but that's how desperately we loved doing it. So I'm really glad that you guys appreciate it. And, I do hope you have a mad Alien Day. So.
Oh my God, that would have been just so amazing to be able to be on the set and be able to do all those things.
Man, Jack sent us a screenshot, she sent us a screenshot of Matt and I, because of course in the time lapse you can see the whole set's getting, all this flurry of activity, during the day, and then it's just like dead hours of the night. But then you just see Matt and I just walking around the set, like teleporting from one corner of the set to the other. So, yeah. No, we loved it as much as anyone who's taken the time to enjoy watching it.
I'll make sure I include those videos of the setup and set down of the sets so that people can see what we're talking about.
Yeah, great.
The Alien Day post. Now, is there anything that you wanted to say to the fans of the Alien universe before we close out this podcast? Is there a message you'd like me to pass on to everyone on your behalf?
Well, first of all, I appreciate that they accept me and Matt, I hope, as being a part of the world, because, it's a great honor for us. It's not, I don't take that mantle lightly. I don't think Matt does either. That's why I think you'll find Matt's only too happy to respond to messages as well, because I know what it's like, and I know what it's like to really love the story, and I understand the passion, because I'm absolutely of that passion. So I really appreciate them when they appreciate me, and I also understand, some of the times where they don't like that film. It's fine. I totally get it. But no, I just appreciate them, and thank you so much for supporting me. And I hope that I can play a role again in the same universe, and I hope that people like it. So thank you.
So I heard that you've got more news to tell us, that something's happening mid-year.
No, look, I really hope that you guys can come and see us at Comic-Con in San Diego this year. It's going to be in July, where Matt and I will be signing our book somewhere in the dark corners of the comic fandom world. So hopefully we get to meet you guys there. Cool. You can praise us or insult us to our face. So that should be good.
Now I've got another special guest on the Yutani podcast, Matt Hatton, also from Alien Covenant. Hello, Matt. How are you today?
I'm very well, thanks.
Thank you for coming onto the podcast. It's really great to have you on.
My pleasure.
So, Matt, let's start with what your first Alien experience was in cinema, I guess.
My first Alien experience, I think I was more like 10 or 11 when it first came out on VHS. And I remember my uncle, back at the start of VHS and stuff, like most people didn't have players, and they were those big tank-like things, and you could rent the player as well as the tape. Oh, so wow. Anyway, he brought the player and the tape back, like he got Alien and stuff. And I don't know, I guess nobody actually looked at it to see, that it was rated R or whatever. And I guess, I don't know, the rest of it was full on or whatever, but my overwhelming memory, like Dane says, he was traumatized and that sort of gear, but of course you're obsessed at the same time and you keep coming back and that sort of stuff. But for me, my memory was that I thought it was hilarious because when I saw the chest bursting scene, because, the lack of articulation in the chest burster, like when it goes along that track on the table, it's like squeeze, and it's, makes the high-pitched noise and goes along just like a puppet. It's so obviously a puppet.
Yeah, and even the blood spurt, like it looks, because it's so solid from one single source point, it looks like a piece of plastic, and I was like, what's going on there? So but
Well, I guess it worked on Veronica Cartwright, but I just thought it was damn hilarious. So that's what I remember, and being knocked out by, it looked bizarre and incredible and that sort of thing. But,
Oh, I was going to say, I think it's kind of cool that, I don't know whether it was intentional or not, but Ridley recreating the slipping on the blood scene, like Veronica Cartwright slipping on the blood, and then you've got Corinne in the lander slipping on the blood, trying to get away from the backburster. So I don't know whether it was intentional, but it was pretty cool. I liked it.
Good question, actually. I would like to know that myself,
I may as well cut to the chase, because we're going to talk about the other stuff in the movie, but honestly, what did you think about the movie? Is there anything that you'd change or anything that you would have liked to see? Did you see any other edits than the final cut of what we saw in the cinema?
No edits, but being privy to previous versions of the script and that sort of thing, when I saw the final stuff, I was like, oh man, because there were a couple of things that fans went crazy about and that sort of thing, and I was like, oh, but it was actually, it worked previously. It was better previously. Let me think though. One of the things that worked well previously was the whole thing with Orem and the egg.
Yeah.
And I think that the order of the scenes might have changed slightly. I'm trying to remember, because I think maybe the directly preceding scene, shooting it with the gun and all that sort of thing, I think that might have been a slightly different place. So basically, when David's showing him through and that sort of stuff, and they come to the egg chamber or whatever.
Yeah, and saying, these are my successes, and this is something to see. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that actually worked because it traded on, one of the things you're always juggling in film narrative in movies is what the audience knows, what the director knows, and what the characters know. And you put one in front of the other at certain times for suspense and all of that sort of thing. And in this case, what worked was that we know as the audience, because we've seen other Alien movies, what's going to happen. But in this particular case, David demonstrated to Oram that nothing would happen by leaning over himself, and maybe he tapped it or whatever it was, I can't recall.
Yeah, I think that's a lot closer to what the novelization was. So, David leaned over and said, see, look, there's nothing happening. And then Oram goes, and he does point out, you're synthetic, so how do I know that it won't react to me? And he's like, oh, come on. If I wanted to kill you earlier, I would have.
No, I don't like that at all then, because that actually gives it away and spells it out, which, ruins the suspense. Just I'm hearing this from you. Why explain it in that way, Because in this version of the script, Oram doesn't know that, It hasn't occurred to him. Why would he have thought that through? Because he doesn't know what this is. He's never seen an alien egg before. He's not one of the audience, and he doesn't know. We haven't got to film 1 yet, with the Iridium and that sort of stuff. And everybody who bags on that, they never bag on John Hurt for sticking his face in there and all of that sort of thing,
Yeah, exactly. And Ridley Scott did say that, Oram leaning into the egg was a homage to John Hurt, and who are we to knock that?
I know. It was. I do think, though, the way they had it before with David demonstrating, look, nothing's going to happen, and because Oram doesn't know any better at that point in the timeline and that point in the evolution of the alien and all that sort of thing, that's why he does lean over, that's why he gets it, and it's good because it ratchets up the tension because we do know what's going to happen. We're like, oh, no, don't do that, you idiot. It's the don't go there sort of thing. There at least is a reason to do it rather than what we got in the final thing. And I was just trying to think. There were some other instances that way. I know that the very end of the film, to be fair, it worked in the script maybe because you don't have music cues and all of that sort of thing. But for me, in an earlier script, the whole thing of not giving away whether it's David or Walter or whatever, and that whole thing about why they're called David and Walter, right?
Yeah, like David Giler and Walter Hill, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's a pretty blatant in-joke, but...
I think it was in the contract, actually. They wanted to be put into the movies as characters, and
it wouldn't surprise me. Because, one thing you do as a screenwriter, apparently, if you want credit and that sort of thing, is you have to show a substantive change. And the way to do that without actually doing that is you just change the names of the characters or maybe the sex or whatever.
I heard a rumour that they called Daniels because of Dan O'Bannon, and they wanted Walter or / David to be able to lock her into cryosleep knowing that she was going to die. So...
oh, man.
Pretty brutal.
There you go. But, so I thought in that version of the script that it was weighted beautifully so that, again, it's that thing of being ahead of the audience, being ahead of the characters, and basically the way it was written, you figured it out just moments before the character figured it out, and then it was all over and that sort of thing, which I thought was really nice. But, it can just be one moment, and if you put the cut a bit closer to Walter / David not doing anything at the monitor before he answers or whatever, or, for me a big part was there was the ominous music cue, and I thought that sort of gave the whole game away and set you off in asking the question of, which is it, and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And that's 5 minutes before it should have happened. And
I kind of like the way they wrote it in the novelization. It kind of reminded me of Red Riding Hood, where she goes, what big eyes you have.
Yeah.
Walter/David is dropping these hints to Daniels, and she's like, oh, you know, David said something very similar. And then, you know, David/Walter replies and like, oh, you know, well, what a credit to him to think that. And she tries to dissuade her to say, no, I am Walter. And she has that. She doesn't really have that realization toward the end. He kind of utters something to her to make her suspect, but before she can even realize that she's asleep. So I kind of like that sort of ambiguity at the end, rather than the sort of like the screaming and the oh my god, no, let me out.
Yeah.
It seemed a bit cheesy to me.
Yeah, right. Well, I mean, yeah, that's totally fair. I actually was sort of a bit relieved after Prometheus, which, you know, there's stuff about both of these movies that I love and stuff that I hate and all of that sort of thing. It's not a matter of an overall meh sort of thing. You know, and of course, I'm biased and beholden to other things, and so it's all a bit messy. But I sort of liked about Covenant that they didn't get into ambiguity so much, because for me, that was one of the big failings of Prometheus, where ambiguity...
I love the ambiguity.
But it's not actually ambiguity, you know, to me. It's like lack of a backstory and just not explaining something because you don't have anything to explain back there isn't the same thing as having a whole backstory and only hinting at or revealing little bits. I sort of hated I love the ambition of Prometheus. Like, it's the broad stroke stuff. I mean, who does that anymore? The big sci-fi questions and all of that, and the big religious questions, all of that. I love the Chariots of the Gods sort of stuff and that sort of gear, but I was like, for me personally, it's like, no, you haven't thought that all out. You know, you just, you know, anyway, no, that's Prometheus. That's not Covenant, but I was sort of relieved that in some ways, Covenant was a bit more straightforward. With that, on the other hand, for me, like my personal subjective thing, my criticism of Covenant, and again, it's compromised because knowing earlier versions or whatever, is that in the end, it was so cut down to the bone for the action and all that sort of thing that it became more plot-based than about all the metaphors and allegory and all of that sort of stuff.
I have to agree with that. Yeah, like I've had the benefit of knowing a couple of fan editors, and I kind of, you know, I proudly say I watch fan edits because I've probably got at least 3 copies of each movie. So
yeah, right.
And being able to watch the movie with the additional 20 minutes or even with additional viral media that they use in adverts, it makes the movie more whole, and you don't feel kind of ripped off at the end, because I felt like there wasn't any payoff when I initially watched Covenant. I was so upset because I was set up to believe that, you know, the movie was going to be about David and Shaw, and then Shaw's dead, and, you know, everything changed. And I spent the whole time in the cinema trying to reconcile that instead of actually experiencing and enjoying it. So, you know, it's changed, obviously. It's my favourite movie now, even more so than Alien. I love it so much, but that initial feeling, like, I must imagine that so many other people felt that way. So, you know, why Fox? Why Ridley? You know, why Pietro Scalia? Why did you do that?
Yeah. Well, I think it was probably a reaction against trying to go for that big stuff in Prometheus and that sort of gear, where he sort of said, well, you know, I'll give you nasty aliens this time, and you know, still can't win. But but for me, I feel the same way. As the first Alien is my favorite, and because it wasn't the typical Hollywood thing where, sure, guns, but no sex, please, you know, we're Americans, sort of, you know, that very sort of religious sort of, I can't think But and it brought more of a European sensibility into it. It was dirty and mixed up with, it was about male rape. It was about, all of these sort of what's more horrific than body horror and your sense of self and violation and all of that sort of thing. And sex and violence is about as harrowing as it can possibly get.
I had a very interesting way of classifying alien movies. It was like interspecies space rape is what someone said to me.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Well,
that's what it is.
Yeah.
And you don't even have to mention sci-fi and horror because it sounds scary enough.
But yeah. And even the stuff like with Ash and all that, the oral sort of symbolism and that sort of thing, stuffing the magazine, which is a porno mag or whatever, down the throat, and all of that sort of.
Yeah, and even the pornographic pictures stuck on the wall of the Nostromo in the background while Ash is doing that. Everything is there. There's so many layers to uncover. Yeah. On that topic, though, who's your favourite character in the Alien universe?
Oh man.
Because Dave said Ash, which it surprised me because he.
Yeah, I heard. I listened to the thing.
I was like, wow. That made me very happy because I love the androids. So, I'm interested to hear what you think.
Dude, I don't know. I don't know. I need more time, but off the cuff, I would probably say Ripley. Yeah. Because all of the metaphors and everything, in not just the first film, but the whole, the thing about birth and motherhood and being a warrior and all of that sort of stuff. Not just literally with a gun or anything. The duality between her and the alien and all that sort of thing. And Dane and I are both big fans of number 3. Yeah, I know how much people hate that one.
I love Alien 3. There's just so many iconic
a lot of people hate it.
Oh, yeah, well, fuck them.
Yeah. Yeah, well, fair enough, yeah.
So I love the score of the music as well.
Oh, it's phenomenal. Yeah, absolutely.
The shorts, Dylan's speech, when they're talking about mess halls and saying,
that whole sequence,
I don't believe that there's any monsters here, and then that guy gets ripped up into the ceiling. It's just great comedic timing, just everything. Everything is just beautiful in that movie.
Oh, well, I think the second act is a bit of a disaster.
Oh, really?
In both versions. In the original version, everything just gets a bit messy, and it is a bit, who's this character and who's that one, and we get a bit lost in that sort of thing. But in not the director's cut, because it isn't, what do they call that other edit?
Assembly cut, because Fincher quit even before the movie finished.
Yeah.
So I think it was.
I feel sorry for him. I know why he feels the way he does. Cause,
of course, it's understandable. Yeah. Absolutely, it's a pity, but it's a beautiful movie. He did really great.
And it's incredible to I just love watching it just to watch it. It looks so phenomenal. It's so beautiful. Yeah.
And the fact that he was still budding at the time. He hadn't come out with a lot of the stuff he's known for now, and it just shows his skill considering the situation he was put in. I think
it's the worst possible. Yeah, you wouldn't do that to a dog, But the second act though, even in the assembly cut, the whole thing of it's nice that there's a bit more of the analogy to the medieval dragon and all that sort of stuff, which more of the Vincent Ward sort of version of it. But if you lock that thing away, which they do, whether you let it out again or not, it just, sinks the drama and the threat of the alien for good. Because how scary is it going to be now? Because we know you already put it away. So, you can't do that, in terms of dramatic structure and that sort of thing and expect a tense third act. you know.
Yeah, that's right.
Having said that, yeah, I love the start, like the first sort of half hour or 3/4 of an hour or whatever. I love the end. I think that's the perfect way to end, with like her sacrifice and all that sort of thing. That no, of course she cannot trust the company and all of that. And, you know, nobody's given her a break anywhere along the way, and she does suck it up, and she does sacrifice herself. You know, the messianic thing is totally justified.
Yeah. And that confrontation with Bishop as well, like, especially since she kind of, you know, put him down halfway through the movie, and then to be confronted with the human maker of him, that would seriously screw me up if I was her.
Yeah, whether you do think he's real or not, you know? Yeah, so, yeah. Anyway, the fourth movie, I know you've been defending it lately and that sort of thing. And I actually like that. No, like in your
in my round table with perfect organism and on my Instagram. But I know it's flawed. I love that movie though. It was part of my adolescence, and you know, it was my first Alien movie to watch in a cinema. Yeah. You know, to watch Ripley, you know, do that shot with the basketball or bash the crap out of Donna, it's just, you know, when you're a 16-year-old girl, you're like, fuck yeah, and like Cole, she was just so cool, and I find it very hard to hate the movie. And that's a great justification, you know, but like for me, maybe, you know, because I was a bit older what was I don't know, in my 20s or something. Anyway, and I had a terrible theatrical experience with that one. It was the worst, one of the worst ever, but I don't sort of hold that against it because that's not the movie's fault. But, you know, God knows, I keep saying to Dane, I only wish I could find that interview with Joss Whedon. And, you know, I love some Joss Whedon stuff. I don't like other stuff. I mean, everybody's the same. They have ups and downs and that sort of thing. But God, I wish I could find this interview where he took total credit for it. He said that he changed his tune utterly 180 degrees later on and said, you know, what's he, Janae, and all of that sort of thing. Sorry, Joss, but, you know, fucking own it.
Pretty much it. Well, this is the thing about that interview around the time when the thing came out. I don't know if it was like in a Starlog or something or other, but he did own it, and he said, yeah, they didn't change a whole lot. It's my tone. It's all that sort of stuff. And I'm sorry, but, you know, most of that is bullshit, sort of male posturing, one-liner garbage. And
yeah, you know, it worked in Firefly, but, you know, it did not work in Resurrection. Like, even though I do like parts of that movie, and in philosophical sort of intertextual analysis, it makes sense, but... Yeah, but in practice, like in the execution, because that's the thing, like basically for me, have you read the Aliens Labyrinth story by Jim Woodring? And, well, it's ostensibly the same story, right? And for me, I think I preferred the comic one to the film. And I love Janae to bits. The mark of how much I love Amelie is that I forgave him for Resurrection and stuff. But, you know, and City of Lost Children is one of my all-time favorite things, and all that sort of stuff. But in terms of, like I say, you know, if you have to keep going after the end of number 3, where she makes the ultimate sacrifice, sure, you know, the cloning thing, it's, you know, classic sci-fi, and it brings back the same alien themes of Ripley, her sense of self, her humanity, the alien, her relationship with it, you know, and it does take on a more direct theme of motherhood and all of that sort of stuff. And that's all great. And I was really excited because when they get to that lab, I thought, you know what, this is phenomenal, because this is the crux of all of that metaphor and all of that symbolism. It all comes down to this. And when she's confronted with those distorted versions of herself and being melded with the alien and all of that sort of thing, it's just so rich thematically. But it turns into a Rambo movie, and there's that fucking dialogue right after with Jonna or whoever saying some bullshit, and they laugh the thing off. And the worst thing is that a minute later, Ripley is no different from before she went into that lab. Yeah.
And that's unforgivable in terms of writing to me, and characterization and all that sort of stuff.
I do agree with that. It's like, and so many times people quote that line to me that Jonah says, "Oh, it must be a girl thing." Oh my fucking God. If I had $1 for every time that someone's mentioned that to me, I'd be fucking rich.
Yeah, there you go. And I love Ron Perlman, to bits, but geez, I guess you got to say the lines they write, but holy crap. Anyway, so, I can't go there all the way on Resurrection, I'm afraid. And I do like Labyrinth and that sort of stuff.
And I really hope that in the next Alien movie, Alien Awakening, that they do revisit the themes of Labyrinth. And I guess, was it intentional that David's lab be kind of a homage to Alien Resurrection, or was it something else that that really had in mind for that?
Not that I was aware of, of Alien Resurrection or anything. I don't think so.
As soon as David walks into that lab and I see all the deformed fetuses and the experimentations and the pictures, it just reminded me of Alien Resurrection. And as much as that movie loathes, that is the one scene that is just unbelievable. Just, they really outdid themselves practically with the special effects, and I think that Covenant does a great homage to it, intentional or not, with David's lab. So you kind of get an idea of how far David will go, and also, accentuates how disgusting humanity has become, experimenting on Ripley, a human, and just in desperation to get the xenomorph. It's just, to me, it's just amazing, so.
Right. My sense in terms of homage and everything was much more Frankenstein.
Yes.
Dane was talking about the extended Frankenstein metaphor, of the creature becoming the doctor and all of that sort of business. And
that's really cool. I really like that.
Yeah, and he was also saying, we would just wish because of, time, budget, all of that sort of thing, because God knows, other people making these movies, they would cost twice as much as what Ridley makes them for. And there's a little bit of me that says, can you just spend a little bit more? I remember, watching reruns on telly, because I love the Harryhausen stuff to bits, because, they were actual monsters and they're all designed and that sort of thing. But you get the other stuff where they'd stick something on an iguana or whatever, or a lizard, or an insect, and you're like, oh man, come on, that's not fooling me. And Odd Studio guys and,
Creatures Inc. Limited.
Thank you very much. Those guys all together were we loved going around with Creature Shop, because that's, that's our thing, and so every chance we could. And they did amazing stuff, but we just felt like we wanted to go mad, actually designing full-on alien creatures and rather than filling out the background by retrofitting it and stuff. And I understand completely why you do that. You've got to block out the composition in the background, and inevitably a close-up or two sneaks in, and it goes the other way around as well. Remember when those first shots of the face huggery thing with the vagina in your face and that sort of thing.
The Super Face Hugger by Dominic Halstone.
Yeah. But everybody freaked because, somehow they were absolutely certain that was going to be front and center in the final movie, and not, it would be lit like daylight and all of that crap. They really don't think these things through. They just have the knee-jerk reaction and go mental,
It was all side shots. I tried to get a decent picture capture of that, and I couldn't.
Right.
It wasn't until Odd Studio posted it that I actually saw.
Right.
It actually looks like front on, and I was like, whoa.
Yeah. It's pretty in your face. The other thing, because one of the times we visited the Creature Shop, to get reference stuff and that sort of thing for our drawings, we went upstairs and the girls were painting the eggs. The eggs are enormous, and you remember that whole thing on the first Alien film.
So H.R. Geiger says, for the Catholic Church, I made it across.
I know, it's just even more.
Twice as obscene.
I know, absolutely. So anyway, here we are back to the beginning, and it's so vaginal and everything, and it's.
I love it though. I really love it. I'm contemplating getting a tattoo of it. Really.
Well, but anyway, so I'm sure you've seen those photos, and they're working on these, and so you can imagine what it's like to be, day after day painting that in your face, oversized, 20 times, 50 times regular size or whatever. Because, and I was saying to the girls, so this is what you guys are working on all day, every day, in your face? And they just gave me that nod. Yeah.
That would be
funny.
So cool. I would give anything, just even to be the person who paints on the KY jelly for the weeping of the side of the eggs. I'd be happy to do that. I'd be happy to adjust the dust around the bottom of the eggs. Just anything.
Oh, me too, man. I love all that stuff, and we always call the McDonald's shakes alien goober shakes because they use the thickening agent from McDonald's thick shakes for some of the drool and that sort of thing.
Wow, that's cool. Every time I go to McDonald's, I'll remember that now.
And people were worried about the chicken nuggets. Jeez,
Let's go on to, because we were talking about artistic inspiration in the movie.
All right.
As much as you know and don't know about the art, what sort of artistic pieces did you spot in Covenant without having any, I guess, prior knowledge to that sort of thing?
In terms of duplicating famous pieces, or
yeah.
The only one that stands out to me at the moment was Arnold Böcklin's Isle of the Dead. I think that was either Ev or maybe Hagi, I think.
That was Hag, I believe, yeah.
Yeah. Which was good. I didn't discover that till much later, and I was actually thinking about incorporating that into some of the marketing stuff, and I was glad we saw the movie or whatever it was in time, because that would have been awful and awkward. But that's the only one that sticks out, and that's a funny one too, because that's like a double homage, not just name checking that one for obvious reasons, but also due to Giga doing his version of Isle of the Dead. So it all sort of comes full circle.
Yeah, and did you know in Aliens, James Cameron ends up renaming LV-426 as Acheron, and Acheron is the name of the river that bringing the souls of the dead over to the Isle. So it's there's so many links to it. It's very, very rich.
Yeah, and it's the river Styx and all of that. I think.
Yeah, that's right.
I don't know. I'm not educated, so I know of these things, but I can never remember the names or anything like that. But you bring up a good point, because I think you were making a comparison on Insta or something like that about some of the shots. I don't know, was it like Rape of the Sabine or something or other?
Oh, yeah. That one that you did with the illustration. Let me bring it up. Sorry, I've been drinking, I'm going to tell everyone now, I've been drinking a coffee martini, and it's a double, and I'm a bit drunk right now, so you will have to...
You slow down to my speed, that's all right.
All right,
Don't
so...
put on the keyboard.
And I think that David really fits into that sort of relationship in relation to Shaw, because in the earlier scripts, and I'm not sure whether you were privy to this, for the prologue before it became The Crossing, they faked that, he was afraid of dying and he wanted Shaw to be near him, and they ended up having some sort of relationship where they were possibly lovers. They kind of hint to it, but William Etty ended up doing a painting of Sabrina and her nymphs, and she's kind of coddling some flowers, and then I noticed that picture of Shaw and I guess a proto-xenomorph in Petamorphosis, so Shaw is kind of leeching off nutrients off this xenomorph in this sort of like eggish shape thing, and I really don't know whether it was inspiration or not, but I saw like the sort of the form of Sabina, and it really looked very much like Shaw in that picture. So, I drew intertextual analysis to say that they were related, but, possibly not. I have no idea. but that's the whole point of Alien, right? Even Dan O'Bannon said that, we can kind of insert our own theories, and sometimes it's better than what the writers can come up with. So
Sure.
And I don't claim to know everything.
And if your interpretation, if it all still holds together, that's like the mark of that's the good stuff,
Yeah.
I don't.
Right.
It's not necessarily in this case. I mean, this is. It's funny because on the one hand, I love building stuff like that in, and with all of the Shaw portraits and drawings and that sort of thing, it was absolutely intentional to bring up like icon paintings and those sort of tableau representations and that sort of stuff to bring up notions of Shaw as Holy Mother, to David, to Xenomorphs, to whatever, and his relationship with her. Don't know that any of them got into the final film, but I did a bunch of Pieta type situations, and mostly with the intent of...
Yeah, I don't think they made them, but I did draw some analysis from what you mentioned in your Instagram. So yeah,
sure.
It's a pity that not everything made it in, because obviously you guys have made shit tons of stuff, and
but all with the intention of it being cold.
It just didn't make it, which is kind of depressing. Yeah, it's very depressing to not see, the copious amounts of work that you put in, months and months of work, 24 hours kind of dedication.
I'm one of the jobs I do is storyboard artist, and maybe that sort of helped my disposition in terms of rejection and that sort of thing. Because the whole thing with storyboards is you reject them over and over and over and over until you get to the last version, which is the right version or the one you use or whatever. So it's all grist for the mill, basically. And same thing with concept design. Sure, you spend more time on it and you're still going as fast as you can, but it's all ideas. And with movies, it's just as useful to know what not to do as what to do, because it gets you to the finish line in the same way, So, yeah, it's a bummer. Like, you'll always have that thing where, I love this one, and, they never went for it or whatever. That'll happen on every single movie. But, on the other hand, you do get stuff through, and, that's super cool too. And unlike most of the time as a concept artist where it's not the final thing, in this instance, because we were in set deck and that sort of stuff, we did actually see the final versions of what we'd done on the walls there and in the set, and ostensibly wallpapering the sets and everything. So
what did it feel like being in David's lab? Because like the experience of the moviegoer is that you feel like there's a ceiling, whereas when you look at the behind the scenes, there's no ceiling and there's lots of lights and it's very intensely lit.
It was great. Like, the lab was so impressive, and that was mainly Dane's province, I guess, because at that point, this was an interesting question for me, like how many people realize that the lab and David's quarters are different sets.
Yeah, so you were saying that the scroll room was after the lab.
Yeah, that's right. And like we start out in David's quarters where the infamous flute scene is. I don't know, it's interesting to me. That's a Shakespeare thing. But I'm wondering now if everybody laughed and laughed. I can't even remember which Shakespeare play it is. I want to know if people laughed as much watching Shakespeare as they did with this scene, which is an homage. But that sort of, it's a more intimate version. It's very similar shape language and all of that sort of thing. But after that, you go to the big lab and then finally onto the scroll room where we learn the fate of, or maybe not, of Shaw. And maybe, hopefully in the book, this will be a bit clearer because it is essentially its own little 3-act thing. But this brings us back around to what I was starting to say before. I think you were asking me about my impressions of the film and what I liked and I didn't like. And for me personally, subjectively, with Ridley cutting it down, the final film being so cut down for the action, for me it became plot-based. I've said this before, but it became more plot-based, and it lost, a lot of the tone and mood and the whole thing. Like, previously there was more going down into the bowels of the necropolis and getting a little more of that mystery and creeping dread as you make your way along, and these three scenes are part of it, where in David's quarters everything is pretty innocent. You look at those drawings and everything, it seems like regular flora and fauna and anatomical studies. You're not asking the question yet about, hang on, if those are skinned, if that's just musculature, if that's just a skeleton, well, what did he do? And all of that sort of thing. We've already seen that even though the engineers supposedly wiped out, that they can be brought back. We saw that in Prometheus. And, if you extend that to Shaw, how many times might David have killed Shaw and revived her, taken her apart, like vivisected, all of that?
Yeah, I was wondering about that, I guess because it's up to the audience now to decide whether Shaw was cloned or whether David had slowly, realized that, because my theory was, and if you don't mind me telling you it, is that Shaw was infected by the motes and David tried desperately to keep her alive. So it's kind of like the story of Prometheus being pecked at his liver day after day, night after night at infinitum, like Wayland said. And David slowly realizes that the most successful creatures came from Shaw after she was infected. So you see all the creatures in the lab, and you see them progressively getting bigger and bigger, and it feels like to me that David was kind of slowly letting the alien kind of gestate a little bit more and a little bit more, and seeing what would happen to Shaw, and Shaw would be completely, no idea what's going on, because obviously she would be kind of chucking a lead word and fucking getting the shit beat out of her from just getting all of these aliens. And because of the research that I spotted in the illustrations from David from Planet 4, I think it was the Cobra Lily that had a sort of a pain relief, and I can't imagine David finding pain relief for any of the engineers, but finding pain relief for sure because he loved her.
Yes.
I couldn't believe. And I think that he would have done that to try to put her at ease to what sort of torture he was putting her through, and kind of slowly becoming more and more infatuated with the gestation of the animal and less infatuated with trying to keep her alive. And it got to a point where I can perfect this beast if I just let her die. And my idea was everything in the lab was abortions of what Shaw had gone through, and David slowly collecting them all, and Shaw having that slow realization that what David was doing, and then realizing and then trying to escape.
That's all great. See, that, as I say, with it being cut down for time and action and all that sort of thing, that was my regret, was it wasn't as open to that sort of thing, because what happened when it becomes more plot-based, what do we get? We get a distress call down to the planet, someone gets infected, get back to the ship, all shit breaks loose, all of that sort of thing. We've seen that in how many Alien movies now? Those plot points. But what we haven't seen was all that other stuff, the down into the necropolis and the dawning realization of the horror of what he's done, because he's this sociopath that he over the past decade his screws have come loose and all of that sort of thing. So I love that. I kept trying to put things in that would open it up. And let's get back to ambiguity, where don't spell it out. And that's why I don't know if I was successful or not with the Shaw stuff, because I put it, everybody was like, oh, this contradicts that. And I'm like, fucking, think about that. Absolutely. Intentionally, what did that in there?
David is malfunctioning,
we already know he's an operator.
Alien Covenant is taking a leaf out of 2001, obviously, in so many, artistic direction and even in script. And for people to get angry about this contradicts this contradicts that, it's this guy's fucking malfunctioning. That you can't trust anything that David says. He is essentially the devil in Paradise Lost. He's making the reader empathetic to his cause, and then by the end of it, that you've been led down this path, kind of for example, a picture of Dorian Gray. You think this guy's like really amazing and nice, but then he does all of these despicable things and becomes more and more ugly, and his painting kind of reflects that. And David's going down the same path. Like it's so obvious.
We already know that from the last film.
Yeah, exactly.
We've already been like from Prometheus. We know that we can't trust him. We know he lies. Like I say, he's the unreliable narrator, and these stories that he spins, and Walter picks him up because he's a bit wobbly and that sort of thing. So absolutely, did she die? We know she died eventually. Did she die this way? Did she die that way? And you're talking about how she was probably so messed up and that sort of thing. I intentionally did ones where her eyes were sort of rolled up and into her head and a bit milky and that sort of thing, so that you don't know, is she dead or is she just sort of, he's drugged her to high heaven and he's experimenting on her. Like for me personally, it was very much the Madonna whole thing, and just like, again, all of that religious stuff, but in a very blasphemous sense, taking that and perverting it,
That's very Geiger of you.
Well, there you go. I'm trying to be, Dane and I both trying to be as true to Giger as humanly possible, because we love that stuff so much,
Well, you guys achieved, and everyone in the Creature Shop, like, even just seeing the practical effects of Geiger's original Overmorph realized, physically, it's just amazing.
They did great stuff. I mean, I understand, like, it was a shame that we couldn't see more of the practical stuff because it's so great and everything. But on the other hand, I think people there as well, they're so literal-minded about it and they're so surface about it, considering that those creatures move the way they do. They go on all fours. They're fast as all get out. You can't have a man in a suit do that. Like, they just don't do that. And as far as things looking fake and CG, generally I find that people actually mean they move fake, like the way they move seems because of the mass and the gravity and that sort of thing. Because God knows they had perfect plate reference for every scene in terms of how that thing reacted to the light and all of that sort of stuff. Because, Odd Studios and the Creatures Guys stuff was amazing and it was right there. So
yeah, I must admit initially it was just a breaking of canon for me. It was just understanding that, everything that I seen before, everything that I ever expected, you just have to smash it to create something new. And I think that's something that Denis Villeneuve said about Blade Runner 2049. And I believe he's a big fan of Alien Covenant as well. And he recognized that you can't repeat the past. The past is kind of unrepeatable. You kind of have to break it and make something new. And in that, you make something beautiful.
Yeah. Well, at least you've got a better chance of it, because God knows if the fans hate the new stuff or changes or whatever, they'd hate you trying to duplicate the classic that much more.
Exactly. Exactly. You can't please everyone.
Let's face it, people are sort of disingenuous about the old stuff as well. They always talk about, you don't show the creature, you don't do this, you don't do that. It depends on the story and where the emphasis is. You look at the Korean film The Host, for example.
Yes.
That's a film where you do show the creature from the very start, because it's not about the hide and seek thing of finally getting to see the creature. That's not the emphasis in that story. It's about the little girl and all of that sort of thing. Anyway, getting back to Alien, though, yes, for the most part, absolutely. That's a classic example of, Gothic horror sort of stuff down, pick them off one by one, 10 Little Indians, all of that stuff, Old Dark House. The actual story structure is one of those basic sort of forms, I guess, at this point. And that wasn't new. It was the aesthetic that was so mind-blowing and that sort of thing, and, really directed the hell out of it. And, it was just amazing. But you've got to say that when we did see the Xeno at the end, when we saw it, and they did show us full body. You look at it in is it the Narcissus, the little
the lifeboat.
The lifeboat. When it's there in in the doorway before it gets blown out and that sort of thing. That could have been a weighted mannequin. You could have had the long, skinny arms and legs. It wouldn't have looked like a man. It's so obviously a man in a suit. Even The Great Alien, which is one of my all-time favorite, classic films. I think people are just, they feel like they can't admit certain things, like it's betraying their love for the film or whatever. So they go all the way one way or the other. And, so there's that scene that could have been done with a puppet. Because basically it's in there and then it gets yanked out. And the same thing where it's below the engines there, it's so obviously a man in a suit. And there as well, arguably you could have weighted a mannequin there and got that silhouette that couldn't possibly have been a man in a suit, even then, even with the technology at the time. So, it swings and roundabouts for me, and you can't be myopic one way or the other. And, there are strengths and weaknesses to every approach. It's strange to me, because I do work in post as well and effects and that sort of thing, and God knows I'm old enough that I grew up with, classic, old school effects, and I love them to bits. But I find when I'm with computer people, I argue for old school. When I'm with old school people, I argue for computer, because one thing CG does do, even if it doesn't look like it's there, in sitting on the floor there, by the same token, it enables the story a lot more than practical ever did. People just won't admit that practical actually distorts a director's visual language. You look at Spielberg and you look at Raiders or something like that. Let's talk about stunt scenes, for example, where Spielberg's the all-time, shove that camera up under Indy's, chin and that sort of thing. And then all of a sudden we go to the outside stuff in a stunt, and for some bizarre reason, we're behind him, he's got a hat on, he's all in shadow, we're going to the opposite of the shots Spielberg usually chooses and all of that sort of thing. And it just, and even the editing, I have this internal clock where, hero puppet number one, in about 1 second, we're going to cut to stunt puppet or man in suit for the walking bit. Then we're going to cut to close-up hero head with animatronics and that sort of thing. In 100 years of that art form, and it is an art form, you can't have a creature that delivers a line, stands up, walks across a room, sits down and delivers a line, the way they should be able to do. And even if, Yoda is there on the screen, he's still going ba, ba, ba. And it's Frank Oz's genius that makes that live, But in terms of filmmaking, it's the same thing where it just messes up the whole cinematic language and stuff. So anyway, I'm getting into this whole thing now. But back to Alien.
That's okay. That's okay.
So I just think people, I understand. We grow up.
It's a strong thing, and you're right.
It's a huge thing, and they need
that's
to
why
use.
I can't fault Resurrection, even though I notice all the faults now, having grown up and having done the analysis of each scene and having a look at Darius Khondji's contributions in
it's beautiful, that stuff,
sort of having that chiaroscuro lighting and that sort of thing, I recognise all of its faults, but at the same time I recognise all of its beauty, and I think that's what people are holding on to. They're holding on to that sort of that feeling when they first watched that movie. And that's
I know, but to be fair, they need to judge the new stuff in the same way, or at least not make an apples to oranges argument where they'll bring all their critical faculties to bear on how terrible the new films are, but they give a free pass to the old stuff due to nostalgia where they were pretty critical, So
I guess as you get older as well, I don't know whether you watched the old Monkey Magic TV show. When I was younger, I could never tell that the characters were being spoken over by an English-speaking person. The lips I didn't notice it. But now, as an adult rewatching it, you can obviously see that they had been dubbed.
Oh, yeah.
And it's really funny because when you're younger, you don't have that sort of perception. You're kind of just experiencing it in the moment and kind of enjoying it. But as an adult, because you kind of learn more and you end up having sort of different observational skills taught to yourself, either through school or through, self-learning, it kind of mars the experience that you get from watching shows from the first time you've watched it. Does that make sense? And I feel like a lot of the Alien fans are the same. So when they first watch the movie, they're watching it with a sense of awe, and it kind of, completely blows all of their expectations from previous watchings of other movies. So they have this sort of reverence for it.
Yeah.
And then when they watch these prequels, they're like, these prequels are attacking what I hold dear. So now I can't accept them. And, fair enough that there are certain flaws that people have. But at the same time, I've been following Alien since I was freaking 4 years old. I can still accept the prequels.
But that's also the thing of everybody who goes on about they ruined the other films for me. And I'm like, those other films aren't any different. They're not responsible for your preconceptions and the fact that you can't get this out of your mind now. It's like, the film that ruins the book. No, the book, those words are still exactly the same. Nothing has changed on those pages. I understand that, with something as visceral as film, it's sort of, might be hard to get stuff out of your mind if you go back to the book. But the thing is that that's more with the person themselves, and it's not the fault of the new film or the film version of the book or whatever. They're different things, and for me, and having come from comics to film and that sort of thing, I think, the people that argue for slavish adaptations, I think you've got to make the most of the strengths of each medium, and you do need to change them for those strengths. They should be different, so yeah.
Absolutely. And I know you're not on Facebook, but there's a Facebook group that I'm a part of called Alien Prequel Paradise, which kind of celebrates all the films, and even Predator films. We kind of accept everyone. And the one thing that's not accepted is trolling or bullying because of the toxic fandom in the total rejection of the prequels. And we try to entertain everyone's notion of what the Alien movies should be, and kind of try to understand, at least from their point of view, why they view things a certain way, and accept that, maybe we don't have the same sort of agreements and thoughts, but it doesn't make anyone less than us. We shouldn't use aliens or aliens to hold over someone else. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, well, that was the thing. I did another podcast, Dane and I, and I was sort of saying that, fandom and fanboys used to be defined by their love for whatever the property was. And I'm positive that, there's been such a change, and people are so literal-minded now, and about things that aren't that literal, that are inherently metaphorical and symbolic. And, sci-fi is about as metaphorical as you get. It's about as existential a literary form as you can possibly get, It's all very symbolic. So it doesn't make any sense to me to be so surface and literal about things and get into I'm outraged and offended about the logic of the physics and blah-de-blah, and to the larger point of that toxicity you're talking about, where now fanboys are defined by their hate,
Yeah, it's kind of unfair because I consider myself a really big fangirl. I've read all the scripts, I've read all the books. I think about the films 24/7, and to have people representing the fandom in such a negative way, and to kind of have a go at Ridley Scott saying, "Oh, I hope he fucking dies before the next movie because the last two movies were shit." It's like, well, that's really full on. Chill out. They're just movies, and if you don't like them, just ignore them. Like for example, with Star Wars, I don't even consider the prequels part of the cinematic universe for Star Wars. I love the originals, but I don't like the prequels. But I love the prequels for Aliens. So you know what? I'm not going to go after George Lucas and give him death threats just because the movie didn't satisfy me. That's kind of immature, in my point of view.
Absolutely. It's so rife with all of that hyperbole and everything. Like, everybody's got to be more hyperbolic than the last person to make their little mark and all of that sort of crap. Like, if you're securing yourself, you don't need to do that shit, It's just so infantile, and it damages everything, and now we have this, complete sea change in fandom and everything. And yeah, I'm like you, it bugs the hell out of me because I'm as big a fan of many things as I ever was, and like, even if I can't remember, line and verse or anything, but it's that love of overall creativity and movies, which I consider every much an art form as literature and that sort of stuff. And, considering that they combine so many disciplines and just in terms of narrative, you're telling narrative on so many levels. It's not just dialogue. It's color, it's light, it's costumes, giving all these things, giving arcs all over the place, and contributing to the overall thing. So I don't know.
I'm going to have a go at someone who enjoys the movie in a different way. Like for example, Aliens. Some people like it for the action aspect and they don't want to look any deeper, and that's fine. But, in the novelization, I know there's references to Wagner and Rheingold, and, Alien Covenant does that, and people are fully having it out at Alien Covenant, but no one's having it out at Aliens,
Yeah. So, again, it's that give a free pass to your childhood, but bring all your critical nastiness to bear on the new stuff,
Which is a pity, and I wish people could just accept that other people get different things out of movies, because I'm in a group of like 3,000 odd people that like the prequels. It doesn't mean that we all like the prequels for the same reason.
Sure. Yeah.
It's all different. So, just celebrate the differences.
Sorry,
just celebrate the differences, but at the same time celebrate what unites us, what things we have in common, instead of focusing on what separates us. It's just, childish.
I know. But that sort of gets back to why I like to I love the sort of really, really symbolic, rich stuff about original Alien and that sort of thing. And, as I was saying, with this one becoming more literal and linear, with David's sort of story throughout, the film and that sort of thing. And I really like David. I know everybody's all, it shouldn't be Blade Runner and so much.
What are your ideas on David becoming the creator of the Xenomorph and the sort of direction that originally Ridley wanted to go, which is just AI focused? Like, what were your personal ideas on that? Not saying that it represents, everyone else, but...
Oh, not at all. Just subjectively and personally, I think David is the one character in these prequels that stands up to those classic characters. I think he's a great character, and I want to see his story. And it sort of gets back to what I was saying before about I was a bit sad to lose some of that whole story, like, the build up and with all the action coming back to just the plot points we've already seen before. I wanted to see more of that mystery of David and the creeping dread of finding out what's actually going on, and because we haven't seen that before. And for me, David's interesting. I get the whole thing, don't make it Blade Runner or whatever, but the company and the androids being part of that and everything, that's Alien as well for me, all the way along. Whether it's Ash, the bad guy, whether it's Bishop being the good guy and then the bad guy or whatever, you know, and then Call and all of that sort of stuff. So, you know, it's throughout all of it, and I'm fine with that. I like David, you know, and I think Fassbender's amazing. It was very cool being on set sometimes. Like, usually you sort of chained to your desk and that sort of thing, but as you've heard, Dane and I, you know, if we were there at the wee smalls, we took the chance to sort of get out.
Sit in the jockey chair. Oh my god.
Oh yeah, that was awesome.
I would have loved the chance to do that. I would have done that too. You know, if I was in your shoes, I would be, you know, friggin' all over the place taking selfies.
That was the first thing we said. I was like, Dane, you know what, like, us as kids, you know, the jockey, that scene and all that sort of thing. It's like, if it's the last thing we do, you know, that's what we're going to do, you know. But yeah, but seeing Fassbender, because those were, you know, the scenes we'd worked on and that sort of thing, is, you know, film isn't a natural sort of acting platform or anything. There's a certain cadence to it and all of that sort of thing. But man, oh man, you know, when you see him on stage there and you know, his phrasing and all that sort of thing, like, you just know that he's the real deal and all of that sort of thing. So it was pretty cool, you know.
Yeah, I think we're kind of blessed in a way with the prequels having such an antagonist like David, and then having Ripley as such a protagonist in the Alien movies after Nostromo. You know, just it seems like a very fair balance. I think some people could be unfair about Ridley's vision, having an antagonist like David being center stage, but it makes sense thematically, philosophically.
Again, it changes things up.
Storyline, because it subverted everyone's expectations. Everyone expected Shaw to survive, and she didn't, and that just turned me on my head. You know, I really expected her to be the new star, and they were going to, you know, they're going to reboot Ripley, but then they didn't, and I was like, fuck me. Like,
yeah, surprises and that sort of stuff. Well, that's why I love it. You know, it was fun doing all of that stuff where, you know, did he kill her this way? Did he kill her that way? And Dane did tons of concepts. Like, there was our initial stage of concepts where they just said, well, she's being tortured and go for your life. Be nasty. This is an R-rated horror movie. And we're like, oh yes, you know, away we go. And then I don't know if Dane sort of talked about this, but then so we sent off all that stuff, and you know, I was full on into the religious nastiness and all of that sort of stuff, like drawing on Joel Peter Witkin, you know, drawing on you know, the classic Leonardo stuff and Doré stuff. Although, having said that, Gustave Doré is through all of filmmaking just because of the way he staged stuff, and you go right back to like Kong, or, you know, even Citizen Kane and stuff like that, and that sort of compositional thing, dark foreground, lit midground, darker background, all of that sort of thing. It works perfectly for film, so it's through everything. And like you were talking about specific pieces of art, and one of the things I was going to say was, a lot of the time, because you've got all these strands of narrative going on at the same time, you need to use more of a shorthand. So, you know, people will recognize something as broad as Rembrandt or Leonardo in terms of his anatomical stuff and that sort of gear. So you get, in a very short space of time, it's what we call a quick read, where you get, he's doing dissections and stuff in the classical style, in the Leonardo sort of thing, because he thinks he's up there with those guys and whatever. But rather than any specific piece of art itself, just because you're balancing all these elements at the same time. You know, and they'd, Ridley and Victor, I think that they had other sort of touchstones. I can't remember the guy's name. There was a Victorian artist that did all these botanical and like sea life and that sort of thing. All these really intricate or retentive Victorian renderings, and that was one of the touchstones. At the very start, we were trying to find what would work and what would be a quick read, and Victorians sort of went out the window because God knows when the amount of drawings required went from 30 to 60 to 90 to 100 and on and on and on.
Yeah, it'd be just
there was no way
difficult to replicate that sort of detail, because I know, because in my fashion range I actually employed a designer to replicate Victorian botanical artists, and they're like, yeah, that's going to cost you about $7,000, and I'm like, okay, that's not going to happen. And that was just for one pattern. So
that thing of trying to play on precisely that handcrafted sort of intricate filigree style, whatever it is, and being able to actually produce it for the movie or whatever. When Rembrandt cross-hatching or Leonardo or traditional sort of charcoal gets that same sort of point away across in a much more expeditious way, if that's even a word. But, you've got to balance all of the realities with your aesthetic loves and, that sort of stuff. So, yeah, and same thing with the people have seen the anatomical Venus stuff, those from Florence or something. Like I say, I'm not educated, but there were like two schools in Italy. One was sort of more clinical and presented more plainly. The other was much more sort of ornate with the drapery around it and that sort of thing, the anatomical Venus thing. And that was something, and we've seen the modern plasticized stuff as well. So that was a great way into presenting Shaw and showing, both showing David's love and hate for her. Because for me, he's so messed up. It's both of these things are just completely intertwined. The love and hate, the Madonna, the whore, all of that sort of stuff.
I was going to ask you about does David really love her to be able to do all of this stuff? I know Ridley said that.
This is why I'm asking you,
Yeah, depict her in this sort of way is like you said, religiously blasphemous, but at the same time there's sort of this admiration and sexualization of her human body, and not even just her human body, but the fact that her procreating parts that don't work. Like, I think he took a bit of pride. This is me, projecting onto David, but I think he took a bit of pride to be able to make her reproductive system work, even after God deemed it not possible for her to have children.
That's his hubris all over, absolutely. With his, because he is impotent and because, he's got this whole thing about being a creator, he's also fucked up because of his father figure, there's all of that. So it just goes on and compounds itself and that sort of thing. But yeah, it's vivisection. She's not even dead, but he's creating a shrine and getting back to the Giga stuff, trying to present in that sort of both sexual, horrific and beautiful way, like Giga's beautiful Art Nouveau lines and everything in the compositions and stuff while he's doing this pornographic stuff, and like what he's doing to her, he's celebrating her at the same time as he's destroying her, and and who knows how many times and all of that sort of thing. So and look, in the early stuff, like I was saying, the guys, Ridley was horrified. What is wrong with these guys?
That's amazing.
Well, we were sort of crushed because I think out of the original 30 or 50 whatever we did, only like 2 got approved or whatever.
Really?
But yeah, so we were sort of crushed on the one hand. On the other hand, we were like, fucking yes, we've grossed out Ridley. We've been too much for Ridley. But and then it went on and on to the next phase and the next phase and that sort of thing. But I can't even remember what my point was now. But I think
no, it's all great. It's all great.
Oh, just stuff like Shaw. Again, the Holy Mother, but okay, so she's got her arms outstretched, Madonna-like pose, but her torso, her body is revoltingly distended, and all of these chest bursters are coming out, like splitting forth from her abdomen, like eels, like baby eels, or something like that, like just outrageously awful, but presented in that very symbolic style and stuff, all that tableau sort of thing. And it was great fun, and some of the most geeky stuff I did was the Pieta stuff where these horrifying tortured and dismembered creatures, and these distorted babies sort of suckling on the teat of the what essentially amounts to a Venus, like let's get back to Venus again, a type figure who's been amputated basically, in the same way as the statue and all of that. So it was lots of fun for a while there, and some of the stuff that Dane did was pretty outrageous too, and very visceral and very literal, and
I know with your art book that's coming out or being announced at least on Alien Day, that it's David's diary. You know what? Having read the novelization, I would give anything to be able to read Shaw's diary, because it would kind of bridge the gap as to what the knowledge was, and kind of like her slow realization that David's kind of lost it, and that she's trapped and that she doesn't know how to escape. I think that would make a really good horror story, and at the same time it would make a very good visual art diary of the slow descent into hell that David has.
Well, would it be more a regular written diary than a visual diary? Because I think it would follow the same sort of narrative arc, actually, because she sort of loses herself as she goes, obviously, and loses her humanity, but also her senses and all of that sort of thing along the way. It's food for thought. Food for thought.
Well, but because of how rushed the Alien Covenant home video was, there was a lot of variation, because there were the initial writings of yours on the botanical and short illustrations, and then there were the writings that whoever was in charge of that at the time had done over the drawings and either repeated what you said.
There was a bit of that. Yeah. I know.
It kind of gives into the same thing. Like, could Shaw have written one thing and then David kind of try to erase Shaw's footprint by repeating what she's done and kind of trying to eliminate what she's done, but at the same time losing himself and kind of just becoming a bit twitchy. I guess that's the sort of headcanon that I've written for myself to try to reason with this sort of discrepancy that Fox has released.
Well, the same thing with the book that came with the Target release and that sort of thing. There were pictures repeated. There were the same bit of text used on facing pages and this sort of thing. So hopefully, with the book, more of the narrative will come through. For the film itself, it wasn't important. For me personally, I loved writing all the backstory. It was the same sort of process as the actor would use or whatever. And basically for me, it was a tool to make all of the drawings consistent and to come up with stuff that I wouldn't have otherwise. It's just, you do your homework and that sort of thing. But maybe in the book, depending on what's in there, it'll come out, because the arc of it was that with the seemingly innocent stuff, the flora and fauna and anatomical, you're getting what seems like straight up scientific sort of stuff with David's commentary, which you realize is a bit wrong, is a bit, he's got that hubris, and that sort of leaks out more and more. And
I really hope Titan Books really honors you and Dane and Geiger, because I feel like this book shouldn't really come out anything less than an A3, having been an art student and knowing the kind of scale that you drew at or printed at for these things.
A0 and up.
Yeah, so much detail is going to be lost if this is a coffee table book and A5, if that's the way they decide to go with it, which I understand. A normal human in, I'm just documenting words. A5 would make a lot of sense, but we're talking about David here, who thinks he's Ozymandias, or the second coming of Christ / Lucifer, and he is going to make this big fuck-off book saying, this is me, look on my works, ye mighty in despair. And to have that in A5 would be kind of depressing.
Well, we were a bit worried, but I think it'll all be all right. I've got my fingers crossed and everything, because the first one they said to us was smaller than A4, the dimensions. My background is in print production, pre-press and all of that sort of thing, in advertising.
So you've got really a lot of experience in that then.
Right, yeah, but this is their gig, and they've got the license and that sort of thing. So we tried to curate it a bit so that they will get that arc of David sort of through from the very descriptive stuff, and when he loses it, we go a bit further. It becomes a bit more spare, and then to the shore stuff where it's not really annotated at all because he's off with the pixies and that sort of thing. So hopefully it retains structure, but in terms of dimensions and stock.
Well, all of my appendages are crossed. I really hope that it turns out the way you guys have described it, because obviously you guys are very passionate, and between you and Dane, you guys have a lot of knowledge of the Alien universe as fans as well. So it would be a real pity if it doesn't turn out the way you guys have suggested, And us as fans, we'll still buy it, we'll still support it, but at the same time, I don't know whether you know this, but the reason why I've done this creative series and interviewing people from behind the scenes is because I found that the concept art books were very lacking for both Prometheus and Covenant. So I wanted to go to the source and speak to the artists that actually worked on the film and ask the questions that I wanted to ask that weren't answered in the art book.
Yeah, well, that's lovely, and thank you from all of us. I'm sure I can say that from all of us, but I felt the same way too, mostly for selfish reasons, because I only had 4 or 5 things in there that were actually done at the last second in no time flat, and just seeing God love the all the actors and everything, but there was so much, there were repeated photos and all of this sort of stuff, and it wasn't even real behind the scenes stuff for me, and I love that stuff to death. So I would have been happy with the half behind the scenes, half art of and that sort of thing. But another thing that burns me up is not crediting artists, because supposedly but some people seem like the Pixar books seem to generally manage it from memory and all of that sort of thing. But it's just you see so many bad ones now. There used to be, pretty damn good ones, but it sort of seems to have slid a lot. I couldn't help being taken aback with the Covenant one and stuff. I love that Dane's pictures on the cover and that sort of thing, because that's one of my favorite Dane pieces, and it's so him and it's so alien at the same time. But yeah, absolutely, and that sort of spurred me on to actually finally get on social media, on the Instagram and stuff, and post some of the stuff out there. And
yeah, I really appreciate it. I see you answering other people's questions, and there were questions that I was going to ask, and the fact that even other people are thinking about it, that's amazing.
Right.
To take your time out, because I understand you've got a busy schedule, you're working on other movies, and Alien Covenant's nearly a year old now. You know, you could have gone like, you know what, fuck the fandom, who cares?
No, that's the thing, and that's why I had to answer and talk, because I'm that person too. Those are the sort of questions I ask and I want to know, and I've got all my favorite concept artists and that sort of thing. And you know, you don't stop loving it and getting all snobby just because you're in the business. You know, you're in the business because you're a fan and that sort of thing. Like our generation, that's, you know, one of the great things is that it's led us to this point, and we put our money where our mouth is, and that love, pardon me, has carried through to the actual work. And sure, it does become work, and it is a job, and it's not just fluffing around the whole time. But by the same token, it's really cool to be able to contribute to the stuff that you loved growing up and that you still love now, you know?
I must say, like, my daughter watching Alien Covenant, like, when she watched Prometheus, she's like, I want to be Dr. Shaw. And then she saw what happened to Dr. Shaw. And she's like, I don't want to be Dr. Shaw anymore.
Yeah.
But she
fair enough.
Like David, she likes the fact that he's the father of the Xenomorph, which is something that I've found hard to reconcile, because I was in that generation where AVP was canon and then it wasn't canon, and
right.
You know, then the prequels came along, and it was in my head that the Xenomorph had evolved and the Predators found it and then bred them for battle, and then to have David come along and become the creator, I'm like, oh,
well,
why?
Yeah. Oh, I know. Like, for me personally, I still don't know that he's the creator. Like, he thinks of himself that way. But no, he's kicking things along, and maybe he does the hard yards at the end or whatever, but he didn't instigate it. You know, he's taken the stuff that he's found from the engineers. Like, you know, he's found out about that. I can
accept that. Somewhere. In the book, that's what they said. That they found that David had found an ossified ovomorph, and he tried to resurrect it by creating one using all the life on Planet 4. Which is like, that's something I can accept, you know. He tried to resurrect something that he believes was perfect, or he could perfect it even more than the engineers. Yeah, I can jive with that.
Yeah, like, if we're going to be that literal, that you know, yep, he's making them and that sort of thing, then I think that fits in well. And I like the idea, like, not that this is even confirmed yet or anything, or we don't know what we'll see next, or if we'll see anything else or whatever, but there's that whole thing about, and it is all a bit twisted up with the reality of filmmaking and Giga Estate, you know, and that sort of thing, where, I don't know, it's a strange thing. Giga did these designs, like, they're intrinsically him, but at the same time he did them for the film, and, you know, it's just sort of a grey area to me, like, where the rights lie and who does what, but we sort of weren't allowed to touch things like too closely. But getting back to David's place in it, if the stuff so far is more sort of organic, then I like the idea that an android would fuse the bio and the mechanoid, you know, to get to what we see. You know, I think that's a very smooth and logical trend. We'll talk about logical, but...
Well, it goes with the natural progression of things, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I think in the early Paradise Lost prologue, or even the Paradise Lost script, which is for Covenant, that David actually says, I think, to Daniels, that the future is not biological or mechanical, but biomechanical.
Yeah, right.
And I think it rings true to a lot of real-life stuff now. Like, if we were going to survive the singularity, we would have to merge with AI to be able to outsmart our computer creations, otherwise be left in the dust and probably end up like the engineers, you know?
yeah, you know, subcutaneous technology and wearable tech, but also, bionic stuff actually becoming workable now and all of that sort of thing. So, yeah, just that fusion of everything. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Might be a nice way to bring back, people are worried about it becoming all about androids, but that might be a way to steer the android and mechanical thing back to the alien in a consistent way.
Yeah. I personally think that David's going to egg-morph the colonists and it's going to merge with the Covenant.
Yeah.
And the Covenant's going to give the eggs that biomechanical feature.
I think I was saying to Dane, that sort of thing where it's a ghost ship, it's a death ship, and instead of a similar thing to the slime over the mechanical walls, but it's sort of going in the opposite direction where... it all becomes part of the same thing. So probably a similar thing to what you're saying.
That would be cool. I'm down with that. Okay, Matt, just before we sign off, is there anything you'd like to say to the fans out there in the Alien universe?
Keep your enthusiasm up. Alien Day is about celebrating that and the creativity and, the fun of it all. Don't forget to have fun on Alien Day.
Thank you so much, Matt and Dane, for joining me today for our special Yutani Alien Day podcast. And I would like to wish everyone out there in the Alien universe a happy Alien Day. So this is Mother.
All right, this is Dane Hallett, last surviving member of the USS Nostromo, signing off.
This is Colony Ship Covenant, reporting. All crew members apart from Daniels in Tennessee tragically perished in a solar flare incident. All colonists in hypersleep remain intact and undisturbed, on course for Orgai 6. Hopefully this transmission will reach the network and be relayed 6 years.
You can now support Yutani podcasts on Patreon and subscribe to yutani.blog to stay up to date.